Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the National Book Development Board's Literary and Publishing Trade Conversations, or LitPub. Today is our session 4, entitled The Journey of Story Building, How to Create Engaging, Relatable Content for Readers. I'm Samantha Palanca, and I'll be hosting the opening and the closing parts of this program. The National Book Development Board, or NBDB, is an attached agency of the Department of Education with the mandate to develop and support the Philippine book publishing industry. LitPub is a series of NBDB videos and discussions that celebrates literature and promotes best practices in publishing trade through discourse on issues, opportunities, and trends in literature, book publishing, and readership. This session is in partnership with Bookbed, Lira, Linangan sa Imahen, Retorika at Anyo, National Commission for Culture and the Arts, Panitikan.ph, and Prime Trade Asia Incorporated. Before we officially start the discussion, we would just like to lay down some house rules. For our participants, kindly choose a conducive learning environment. As much as possible, avoid unnecessary background noise. Mute your mic at all times, but we encourage everyone to turn on their camera for this session. And if you wish to ask questions for the Q&A portion, you may comment them in the chat box. You may send your questions, suggestions in the chat box, and the moderator will be the one to raise them to the speakers during the Q&A portion. This session will also be live streamed via Facebook page, so kindly feel free to use the comment section for our Facebook viewers. After the end of the seminar, we would like to kindly ask our viewers to fill out the evaluation form that will be sent to your email. So for our session, we have Ms. Daphne Lee, Mr. Joel Donato Jacob, and Ms. Gail Villanueva. Here is Ms. Daphne Lee for these panels, entitled How to Create Engaging, Relatable Content for Readers. Ms. Daphne?
Video that was pre-recorded and into a discussion between Gail and Joel about creating books for young readers.
So we're here for a book discussion for a National Book Development Council of Philippines event. And with me are two Filipino writers. First of all, Gail de Villanueva. She's a Filipino author born and based in the Philippines. She's also a web designer and an entrepreneur. She loves pineapple pizza, seafood, and chocolate, but not in a single dish. Oh, why not? Gail and her husband live in the outskirts of Manila with their dogs, turtles, ducks, cats, and one friendly but lonesome chicken. Her debut novel, My Fate According to the Butterfly, was named Best Book of the Year by Turkish Reviews and Amazon Best Book of the Month, Editor's Pick, and an NCSS CBC Notable Social Studies Trade Book for Young People. Gail's next book, Sugar and Spite, will be published by Scholastic on April 20th, 2021. And then there's Joel Donato Ching Jacob. Hi, Joel. He's 2018 Scholastic Asian Book Award winner for Wing of the Locust. and an Editor's Choice awardee for the Best Asian Short Stories 2019 for Artifacts from the Parent. Hello, Gail and Joel.
Hello there. Good morning.
Good morning. So I know Joel quite well because, I haven't introduced myself. I'm the consulting editor at Scholastic Asia. So I actually worked with Joel for Wing of the Locust, which will be published this December 2020. And Gail, we haven't met. This is the first time we're meeting.
Yeah.
And I've been getting to know you by reading your Butterfly book.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's here.
Yeah. So, when I read it, the first thing that struck me was how you talk about the superstitions in butterflies and how they're a harbinger of death, right? That's the belief in the Philippines. And of course, we have that similar belief here in Malaysia. And when I was editing Joel's book, Joel talks about it too. In fact, the moth in his book is a significant character, and the characters in his book also have this belief about the moth being a harbinger of death. So let's jump straight in this discussion about how to create engaging, relatable content for readers, right? I wanted to ask both of you, when you write, do you write for yourself or do you write for your readers?
You know what? That's a question. That's a really good question. I'm also actually part of mentoring programs at the moment. I help out with pitchforce.org. It's a mentoring program in the US, mostly online, and basically it's online, and where you apply, and then a mentor is gonna take in your manuscript and mentor you and help you get improve. And one of the things I always tell a mentee is that you write for yourself, but you edit for others. Because once you have a book that's out for publishing and it's published and it's shared with the people in the world, it's just not your own. And whenever readers read your book, they bring in their own experiences. So it doesn't necessarily mean so I can't exactly say if it's one or the other, but because when you write, when you put those words into a draft, that's when you start to actually just start writing for yourself. But once you put it out in the world, it's just not yours anymore. It's with every reader.
The readers bring something else.
As for me, I started reading when I was frequently sent to detention in grade school. So detention in our school back then in Canosa was to be sent to the library, which wasn't much of a punishment. So we had rows and rows of Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew books that I started reading when I was in second grade. So for me, reading is an act of reclamation. So it's the time that was taken away from me as a free child, and I was sent to this library. And I realized when I write for myself, I'm writing from a space of shared experiences. So young people and children also have their time taken away from them, say from traffic or being stuck in traffic or being forced to wait when they're mired in between classes or while they're waiting for their parents to finish their jobs. So it's when I write for myself, I'm writing from a position of a shared experience that other Filipino and Asian young people also went through. I am basically writing for 8-year-old Joel who's stuck in the library, but that 8-year-old Joel also shares the same experiences as, say, a young person commuting in a 4-hour traffic jam in EDSA. And it's supposed to make it exciting and better. It's reclaiming what was taken from you, not just through, poor urban planning, but, making life worth living.
Okay, so in effect, you're writing for both yourself or your past self as well as
That's
the people
right.
out there, right? So both you and Gail, your books are very, very Filipino. Can you, Joel, tell us a little bit about the background of Wing of the Locust?
Background. Okay, so way back in 2012, I was dissatisfied with my job in a business outsourcing company. I asked my friend to get me an interview with ABS-CBN, which is a television company here in the Philippines, and I was asked for my job interview for their creative department to write a pitch for a TV show. And I wrote the pitch for a famous comedian here in the Philippines, Vice Ganda. And so I wrote about her as a pre-colonial witch doctor who can control insects. But it was rejected way back in 2012. But I've had 5 years to develop the concept, and it slowly grew into sort of like a bridge between Harry Potter and Ika Korniawan's Beauty is the Woo. A coming of age story in pre-colonial Philippines that involves, magical insects.
Yeah, yeah. And so yours is a pre-colonial story. Gail's is very modern, but still references Filipino life and Filipino beliefs and superstitions, right? Gail, can you tell us a little bit about how you came up to write that book?
Well, actually, it's not the first book I wrote. The first one was a historical fantasy, also set in the Philippines, and it was set during the 1896 period. But that book, I queried that book for about a year to U.S. agents, but apparently it's a good concept, and I'm probably gonna revisit it one time or another. But I felt like, looking it back now, I probably wasn't mature enough to handle that kind of project, and so it's in the back burner. But actually, with Butterfly, with My Fate According to the Butterfly, I came up with an idea when I was like in the middle of I think getting rejections after rejections for the first book, and I was just suddenly had this idea like since at that time it was the start of the Duterte campaign against the war, anti drugs campaign. So I was thinking that maybe like this kind of topic is something that kids should be able to digest as well, because it's gonna impact their lives one way or another. So from there, I came up with this book, and thankfully, it turns out to be my heart book. Like it turned out to be the one that got the attention of my agent, and thankfully, like yeah, I had like offers from literary agents, and I picked the one who understood the story the most, which is Alyssa Henking and the Trident Media Group, and from there she sold the book, and there you have it. It's a book now, and it's mostly inspired. But the thing is, the thing about Butterfly, it's not merely about the politics, the social economic thing. That's one of the things that I appreciated about my agent, is that she understood that essentially this is a story about sisters, Sab and her older sister Nadine. That was the forefront of the story, and yeah, and the thing with publishing in the US is that you're gonna be getting a lot of rejections, like rejections upon rejections and rejections. Sometimes it's just, you feel like you're gonna go nowhere. But what happened with me is, like, thankfully I just wrote another book when the first one wasn't working out, and here you go, and here I am with you.
So Gail, was there any conflict between you, what the story you wanted to tell, and the story that your publishers expected of you, or your editor?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
that's a funny thing.
How did you deal with those conflicts?
That's actually an interesting question, and that's one of the things that I talked about in one of my newsletters when Butterfly had its anniversary. And since it's like over a year now, I think I'm allowed to talk about it. But when my agent first sold Butterfly to Scholastic in New York, is that it was at like around just 36,000 words as compared to the 42,000 words now, and the half, like the last half of it is like totally different. Like right now, when you start it and you finish it, you leave it with a hopeful note.
Mm-hmm.
But the original version of Butterfly, it was very, very tragic.
Okay.
Like somebody literally died.
Oh.
It was
And
like
so-
that dark.
And they
But-
had problems with that.
Yeah, so I was like given a chance. Like I was given a choice. If somebody dies from the start, I have to work it into the story that it's gonna be dark. It's like I'm gonna have to set the expectation that you have to expect a dark ending.
Mm.
Either that or I change the latter half. So like but the thing is like I just couldn't remove Sab's hopefulness and her like and the banter between her and Pepper. I
Mhm.
just couldn't let go of it. So I decided like, you know what? Okay, I'll just change this other
Right.
half and make it what it is now. So
I see. Okay.
yeah, over 3 rounds of revisions. That's developmental edit alone. Yeah, we finally got there.
Okay.
It was
Joel,
like a total overall.
do you want to share a little bit about your experiences editing your book and you switched off your
So, yeah. Just a little insider. Before it won Scholastic Asian Book Award, and I got to start working with Daphne. It won I'll Write to You, You Write to Me, which is an initiative by Scholastic here in the Philippines where you pitch a chapter to Barry Cunningham of Chicken House. And so I wrote one chapter and sent it to Barry. He liked it. I wrote some 50,000 words after, and then I didn't get word from him again until after it's won Scholastic Asian Book Award. And now I have 2 editors, Daphne and Barry, working with the project. And where Daphne was very gracious to acknowledge the need for this kind of Filipino experience to be reflected on the page. Barry was more apprehensive about how a Western audience would stumble upon the amount of words that aren't explicitly explained because they belong to a Filipino experience. And I'm very happy that Daphne was more than welcoming to the kind of Asian, and not just Asian, Southeast Asian, because I remember Daphne saying, hey, our boats are also called Karakoa. Remember that one? So the Malaysian rowboats were also called Karakoa. And then I was like, oh my God, I'm suddenly so excited to be working with someone who's as excited about that Southeast Asian experience as I am, and getting that to young people who may not be familiar with those words, but when they see that on the page, they want to find out because it belongs to our heritage, and that may not be exactly what a Western audience is looking for. But I'm happy working with Daphne and bringing that across to young people.
Yeah, it was really exciting actually seeing something that's so close to home being written, you know, and framed in a story that's so exciting, right? But I think there's a lot of pushback from the West, not wanting to acknowledge our stories, not wanting to make the effort to understand our stories. So what do both of you feel? Do you feel that this is something that will change given time? And in the meantime, how do you plan to go about telling those stories that you want to tell and reaching a wide audience? Not just, is it important to you to reach readers that are not just within your home sphere, but also a wider readership?
Well, actually, in my case, since I'm published in the U.S., I'd say that they're much more accepting now as compared to probably like 5 years ago. 5 years ago, I highly doubt that Alyssa would have an easier would have an easy time selling my book, because it's like really Filipino. And but the thing is, like, if you especially the roster, like that were that Scholastic is in the same the catalog in spring 2021 alone, there are a lot of books out by writers outside of the US being published in the in the US. And one of them is, aside from my book, there's also Bone Talk. Yeah, so it's slow. I'm not saying that it's totally perfect, in a sense that some of them would still like there are publishers that would pick white authored books by Asians. There are still some who do, but the nice thing about it is that publishing is learning, and they're giving more space for those who actually have stories to tell but don't necessarily have a chance to. So, and yeah, and another important thing about that is that the access to New York publishing is now much more convenient, especially with email, because back then you have to like mail your entire manuscript like literally, like something as thick as this. As, can you like imagine how expensive mailing this one would be? It would probably like cost you like, I don't know, like $100 at the most, or like $50 just to send one, and you're not even sure if it's gonna be accepted. So there's like there's an improvement on it, and then slowly some of them like find it hard to like adjust, since it's a different perspective. It's not the white lens that they're used to, or the Western lens that they're used to, but they're slowly easing into that global mentality. Like there's like there's like a world out there beyond the United States bubble. That's usually like the case, right? So, and then more kids and more educators and more librarians are like looking for books that would reflect the reality of what we have now. That's not just within their own communities, but outside of it. Because like I always like saying is that I've even like had it like as a dedication for my book, is that like if you're searching for a window to look through, and or yearning for a mirror to see yourself in, this book is for you. That was my dedication, because kids need to see themselves in stories.
Yeah.
And kids who don't share the same marginalizations as we do need to have a window into it. So yeah, and I'm glad that publishing is slowly catching up with that kind of there.
So I follow Daphne's Instagram and Twitter, and I know some of the books that she's reading. So I'm very interested in her list of Afrofuturism books and literature from Africa, because in a parallel, we see more and more of these Latinx and African American diaspora literature, because they're reflected in the colonial experience we have in the Philippines. And there is a market for that, for in the US or Europe, where the colonizers are anticipating the experiences from the spaces that they colonize. So say 60 years ago in the Philippines, we have what is termed local color, which is inserting Filipino imagery in a otherwise Western framework of an American short story. But now we have ideas like Kisho Tenketsu, which is a more Eastern format where the conflict doesn't necessarily arise in the same way. And the expectations of community is more important than individual. So this kind of movement from as the experiences of Asia and Africa and South America are reflected in more and more texts, like say, I'm trying to think. So let's say Ted Chiang has very white characters, but the development of the story, it reflects his Asian background. And who else do I read in English? Ocean Vuong is very popular in the U.S. as a Vietnamese refugee. So we know that there is excitement for this new being the term, experiences from the diaspora and the colonial side of the narrative.
Yeah, but the US, I suppose they're more interested. They tend to pick and choose, right? What they want to acknowledge and what they want to give a voice to, right? And at the moment, Southeast Asia, it's gaining in popularity, but it's probably way behind, say, East Asian literature in the US and even in the UK. Right at this moment, for you, Joel, and for Gail, is it more important to you to reach your Filipino readers or to reach an international audience? And why?
Well, I'm actually on the international. My agent sells my book internationally. Since she's also based in New York, and one of the things that I tried to learn when we first signed a contract together when she's representing me is that there's what you call North American rights. For some reason, Philippines is included in the North American rights. So every time she sells my books with North America, not just world rights, there's almost like a huge chance that my book is going to be in the Philippines as well. So in my case, it was more on I wanted not just because we also have our brothers and sisters in diaspora, so I want them to feel represented as well. So that's one of the main reasons why I initially picked to submit to a literary agent in New York, because I felt like I would be able to reach more Filipinos in that case. And I'm so happy, right now, I'm so glad that Hannes Scholastic Asia is also distribute to my book in the Philippines, and it's and at the same time you can see your book on there, people from the US sending me photos of kids who feel seen.
Mm-hmm.
I actually have like a compilation of like of photos that parents and educators have sent me.
Okay.
Yeah, it's heartwarming whenever you see like a kid's holding up your book, and the interesting about it is the background, like literally the background of where it was taken. So you can see them like holding it up in a bookstore in, let's say, in New York or in LA, and then you have somebody holding it up in Makati. So it's like I feel like the reason why I chose that is that I wanted to reach more kids, and I'm glad I've been given the chance to.
Okay. And you, Joel?
So growing up, you know, like I grew up. I think the first adult book I read was The Hobbit when I was 10 years old. It's not very adult. It's still YA-ish. But I felt like I was very amazed by the landscapes of Tolkien, but it just wasn't me. I'm pretty sure a lot of young people go, I'm pretty amazed by this, but it does not represent my experiences. So as for who I feel like it's important to reach out to, I see nothing wrong with going for global. Like, say, I want the Western reader to say, wow, this is also fantastic. But it's not necessarily me. There's nothing wrong with that because that's how we read all of these books from Tolkien and Stephanie Meyer. I read all of those books, and they're not my experiences, but I thought they were wonderful. And I'm very glad to reach them. But my primary goal is to reach out to the Southeast Asian reader, the Filipinos, the Malaysians, Indonesians, Singaporeans, and they go, I know this word. This is my experience. I know these superstitions. When my parents tell me to invite strangers over to the house without expecting them to come in to eat our food, that's not being strange. That's our experiences. So I want that to happen. Like, you know, oh, I see myself in this book. And that's how I think putting the Southeast Asian experience first is important to me. If the white people say, hey, this is wonderful, this is strange, I like it, that's okay too, that's wonderful. But putting the brown reader right there on the piece of paper where they can see, this is me, that's exactly what I'm looking for.
Thank you very much. Now, thank you, Joel and Gail, for sharing with us your the background to your books and also your inspirations and what you hope to achieve through your stories.
It's always nice to see you people again. So it's been almost 2 years since I last saw either of you. So
2018.
2018. So it's wonderful to see you both again.
Take care. Bye.
Take care.
We have some questions now for Gail and Joel. You guys ready to answer?
Yeah, sorry.
To share your wisdom.
distracted.
To share your wisdom with your viewers.
Got a bit distracted. Hold on. There you go. Let's turn this on. There you go. Okay, game.
Okay, I hope everyone enjoyed that video. The sound was really good, even though the video itself was a bit laggy. Still, we've got some really interesting questions. So let's take this first one from Stephen Gaganti. I don't know whether I'm pronouncing the name correctly. My apologies if I'm not. It says, good afternoon. What is your advice for high school or college students who want to publish a book? That's the first part of the question. And then what are your experiences when you started writing your first book? And as a third question, do I need to pursue a college program related to literature or creative writing to become a book author? Okay, so let's do the first one first. What is your advice to high school or college students who want to publish a book? Gail, perhaps you want to start?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. It's pretty simple. Just keep on writing and writing and writing and reading and reading and reading, which is exactly what I did. I don't really have formal training in writing. I just read a lot. I wrote a lot. And eventually I made this one. And now this one. So yeah, I can, as long as you keep on reading and writing, because you get a sense of how other writers express their thoughts and their feelings in their own books. So somehow you learn. Well, it's just that it's just me, and I actually learn better when I learn by example. So there, you just read a lot and write a lot.
Thank you, Gail. And what
Sure.
about you, Joel? What's your advice?
Okay, publishing. Publishing in the Philippines is basically being aware of the opportunities that you have available for you. You can go independent, really, and publish your own book. That is very possible with a lot of desktop publishing. Like, say, I remember me and my friends, we came up with a book. And that's perfectly fine, too. And then, of course, there's joining opportunities that will allow you to access publishing opportunities. Say, for instance, like, say, the National Writers Workshops allow you to meet people from UP, UST Press, Ateneo Press, through their workshops, and you get a feel of what it's like to what the market is looking for, and what it means to be readable and publishable, marketable. Well, all of those little quotation marks there. And it really means, because writing and reading is not an isolated experience. You get to interact with your peers. And I'd like to have a shout out to a couple of people in my writing circles, Maggie and Yan. We would exchange thoughts on our writing. We would sometimes just sit together in Zoom writing about writing. We don't really talk. It's just having that expectation of yourself to be writing. And then eventually you exchange opinions with friends on what makes it readable. In fact, don't even make friends with them. So it's even better if they don't like you, because they'll tell you what's wrong. If they're your friend, they'll probably, oh, ang ganda-ganda, there's nothing wrong with it. That's useless. That's pointless. What you want is your non-friends to tell you, it's really bad. You should reconsider writing this part. So there. Joyce Gan asked, but isn't self-publishing expensive? Yes-ish. If you go by blessing, each binding is about 40 pesos. Of course, everything is just a photocopy, so it's okay. A single print run of a book could be around 260 pesos, and you can probably sell it for 300. So it is expensive, but it's a print on demand, really.
Thank you, Joel. Would you like now to share about your experiences as writing your first novel, as a first-time writer?
Well, honestly, it was difficult for me because my job is primarily a web designer. But that's a thing, though. I research a lot. I read a lot, and I surf the internet a lot. And eventually, I found my own community within the online community. Which, by the way, speaking of which, sorry, just a little bit plug. I'm doing a fundraiser with the Kidlit community in the US, kidlitforluzon.com. We're raising funds for the typhoon victims of Luzon. And the nice thing about it is that these people who are helping out in this campaign that I'm doing are some of the same people who have been helping me throughout my career. And I've met them. Some of them I've met them in a mentoring program, like pitchwars.org. You might want to check that out. Right now, we've already chosen our mentees, which we'll be working with them for the next 3 months. And then once those 3 months have been concluded, we're going to feature their manuscripts on the Pitch Wars website, where agents can request and ask for more information about the book that they would read and consider for representation. So there are a lot of other opportunities that you can, get into. You just need to kind of like know where to start. And that's a good way to start, because the Pitch Wars community is very welcoming, especially if you're intending to write for the US audience, to get published in the US traditional publishing. That is one way to do it. And there are also, once you somehow get an idea of what it's like in there, you're going to meet a lot of Filipino Americans who are also willing to help you out. And that's one of the things that actually how I started with my writing career. I just found my community in online, and they've helped me get where I am, and I'm eternally grateful. And like it's not every day that you can say that you've been mentored by Erin Entrada Kelly, right? She's my mentor, and if she's listening right now, I love you, Erin. She's wonderful. She's helped me hone my faith according to the butterfly. And one of them is also Kate Messner. Another shout out to another mentor. She writes a lot for Scholastic as well, and a lot of chapter books and such. And there's also Annika Morose Risi. She's also helped me, and I've met them all online. And you can, maybe Twitter isn't for you, but you might want to check it out, especially the hashtags like M-writing, A-M-writing, as in M-writing, M-writing fantasy. Check out those hashtags. They're very useful. There are a lot of writers who are on there. They're just willing to help out. And I've met some of my best critique partners, and some of them are even my best friends right now. And we talk, and sometimes we do Zoom. We do like writing sprints together. And another community that you wanna check out is NaNoWriMo. Is that how you pronounce it? Nano, it's NaNoWriMo.org, where you're supposed to write a 50,000 word book within the whole month of November. And I'm writing. Okay, I'm gonna stop there, because there are so much more that you can learn a lot by just searching for writing communities on Google. You would find out those people who are usually on there would be on those hashtags as well. And I think there are like articles online giving you an idea of where you can start if you want to go start in the Twitter writing community. Because I'm telling you, as an author who lives in the Philippines and gets published in the US, the Twitter community is such a huge help for me. Yeah.
Thank you, Gail. Anything to add, Joe?
What was this question? I got, are we on the second? What are your experiences writing your first book?
Yeah.
Okay, so my first book, the first complete novel I wrote, was terrible. It was, I can't remember the title. It was for a class by Ma'am Heidi Abad for Creative Writing 151. It was about kids who work in a garlic farm and play in a quarry. So after basically I was just writing from my own childhood. I grew up in a garlic farm, and right beside the garlic farm was a quarry, and we would play pellet guns. We'd shoot each other with pellet guns in the quarry. Now, thinking about it, I would have never wanted to publish that book, because I don't want kids to be running around shooting each other with pellet guns. You know, like...
Sounds so fun.
It's unwise. Why would I do that? So, but Mom Heidi Abad gave me a pretty good grade. And so that was my first experience writing a book. It was backbreaking. planning. I'm not a pantser, so everything was outlined. The dialogue occurred in places where I needed the dialogue to occur. It was structurally sound, but I don't think it would have ever gotten into any publishing house. It was a terrible idea.
Thanks, Joel. Speaking of which, how long did it take you to write Wing of the Locust? This question is from Raven Villanueva.
Since I'm not muted, it took me 6 months, 6 weeks of writing to write down Wing of the Locust. But that would be cheating because I already had an outline. I've been working on the outline for several years, and I've done a lot of research. This is my best friend, Ancient Beliefs and Customs of the Tagalogs by a Swiss person, Jean-Paul G. Potet, from the College of Archaeology in UP. But the actual writing took me 6 weeks. That's basically almost no peeing, almost no eating, almost no sleeping, just writing in alone. Basically, I smelled and looked like a caveman.
And how long and how different is that book that you wrote to the book that has been published?
A lot. I had my brother, read a portion of the book, and then if you are familiar with the Freytag pyramid, it talks about the try-fail cycle. So, my brother's recommendation was that your try-fail cycle should at least still inspire confidence in your protagonists. So what I was doing was that I was writing these try-fail cycles where they were just miserable. Like after they failed, they were pathetic. So it wasn't very aspirational at all. So having people read through your work, and Jan Baltazar actually, from the room, he recommended the change in chapter 8. So if you are familiar with that, of course you'll need to read the book to realize what Jan Baltazar recommended about chapter 8. But that ending was from him.
Okay, thank you. Speaking of Jan Baltazar, there's a question here from him. And it says, have you had to exclude things that were too regional or too specific to your culture?
Oh, I'm going to answer that one. This is one of the things that I love about Scholastic. They made sure that I made my book as Filipino as possible. Like, my editor literally told me, like, I should include more Tagalog words. And she said, like, I didn't need to, like, westernize or give up anything about anything about my culture. So, I just got lucky, and probably not all publishers are going to be like that. But I'm lucky with Scholastic, and especially with my editor in Scholastic New York, Scholastic Press, specifically the imprint who's handling my book. It's Emily Safe, and she's wonderful when it comes to like letting me write my story, not just my story as in my story, but my story as a Filipino. And basically we just need more editors like that. So no, definitely I have never felt like I have to exclude something. Because speaking of which, honestly, this is one of the things that bloggers that usually discuss about my book, is that there's a scene about the MRT where it stops literally on top of the elevated railway. And I'm pretty sure everyone in here has experienced, everyone here who commutes have more or less experienced that event where you have to walk on an elevated railway because the MRT has stopped right in the middle of it. And there's a scene there in my book. And during edits, my editor was like, "Are you sure this is realistic, Gail? I mean, there isn't any EMTs, like emergency services, going around. They're just walking like it's a park." And I'm like, you know, what I did was I sent her this bunch of articles about MRT stopping at almost every station in Metro Manila. And she's like, okay, that makes sense. People are used to it. So I didn't exactly have to remove things. It's more about explaining and easing them into the Filipino culture that I had a bit of a problem with. Because I mean, imagine like you're gonna have MRT stop right in the middle of a railway, not like elevated literally. You can like, if you made a wrong move, you might end up splattered along EDSA highway. That's probably the only time you're gonna see emergency services, when somebody gets actually falls down on the elevated railway. So yeah, and basically those are kind of the things. Like an example is like another thing that I had to like kind of explain to them is the fact that summer in the Philippines doesn't technically exist. It's more or less a dry season and a wet season. So and there were like there I think there are like 5 copy editors who flagged it in my book about why how come Sab is saying summer is in March, shouldn't it be in July? So I have to like explain it all over again at every division. No, because in the Philippines we only have like wet and dry season. So it's in March it's technically summer for the kids and all that. So yeah, it's more or less about easing them into the Filipino culture. That's more of a problem than them excluding it there. Yeah, I think you're muted, Daphne.
Do you have anything to add, Joe? Thanks, Gail.
I was just recently talking with a short story editor based in the UK. The book hasn't come out yet, but it's a cosmic horror story where a Cthulhu-like creature responds to the prayers of the Filipinos to destroy the Spanish colonizers. But it's all just fun. But they they were so weirded out by a lot of the space of a Filipino pre-colonial house. I was saying that you have a 3-step stair, and then that's where your chickens are, and then the house itself is only 4 feet tall. You need to crouch, you need to crawl around. So they were like, "What?" They couldn't imagine the tiny spaces. So I think that's really part of the experiences of reading, isn't it? So not everything will come up as realistic, even though it is real. So to answer Jan's question, did I ever need to edit something out because it was too Filipino? Um, I've had pushback, and you just push them right back.
Great, thank you.
By the
Joe.
way, I'm just Daphne. I'm just gonna add about the creative writing course.
Okay.
Yeah, I need to give a shout out to somebody here in the audience, Miguel Escanio. We have the same course. We took up the same course. He's a year older than me. Year old. Sorry, Miggy. Miggy and I both took up BS Communication Technology Management. So it's not a creative writing course. And while Miggy graduated, I didn't. So that should give you a perspective. Like, I didn't graduate. I'm like 3 units away from graduation. And it's all because of microeconomics. God, that I took that up 3 times and I totally failed 3 times. And now I'm like, oh, whatever. I'm just gonna write and probably just survive writing and with my web design and my business and stuff. So yeah, that's one of the things that that's another perspective. Like, I'm not saying that you should like quit your job, quit your studies now or whatever. And I got lucky because my parents were able to support me with although we were having a really hard time during that period, they were able to support me, and we were able to ask some relatives for help. So they were able to help me like put up my own business, and then I have a supportive husband who helps me who supports me with my writing. So it's probably not a good idea to just quit altogether, just because it works for me doesn't necessarily it would work for you. But what I'm saying is that you don't necessarily have to have a creative writing course to actually get published, because like Miggy is also a writer, and he finished college and everything, and but he's still a writer and he didn't take up a creative writing course. Probably just like some, I'm not sure what, I did some short writing courses with Danton Hermota. I took up an elective with him, so I kind of know. Even before I went into in getting like critique partners online, I already knew how to handle critique like right in your face. So yeah, there like probably it does help to take up some workshops and some short courses about it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to take up a full-on course in college for it.
Yeah.
So.
Thanks, Gail. I think there's no right or wrong way to do it.
Yeah.
I think creative writing courses help some people.
Yeah.
But they might not be the right fit for everyone.
Probably it's just the same way I operate. I'm not much into the traditional kind of learning. If you try to put me in a seminar, I'm gonna be so distracted I would like end up drawing drawing comics on my notes. So it's probably me. Yeah.
Okay, let's take another question from Louis Silvestre. He asks, or she, sorry, Louise, how do you avoid cliches when creating a story? Joel?
I was looking forward to this question. I saw it and I want to answer that one.
Yeah.
My answer is Dungeons and Dragons or any role-playing game. When you're planning a story, you always tend to plan about how things go right. So you usually structure an outline. You have this arc. You're drawing an arc, and this is where they succeed. But the accumulation of failures that slowly brings them to a point where they can succeed, that's something harder to come up with. And that try-fail cycle, as the Freytag pyramid puts it, comes naturally when you're playing Dungeons and Dragons or Dungeon World or Vampire the Masquerade. All of these games are engineered for the players to succeed, but they don't. There's always, if you want to write about hubris, overcompensation, over preparation, assuming things, arrogance, bad dialogue, because that's important in writing your fiction, to fumble through dialogue. All of these things, it comes naturally when you're playing a role-playing game with your friends. So how to avoid cliches? Get out there, experience stuff. If you can't go out there and experience stuff, play Dungeons and Dragons.
Me, I'm honestly like use those cliches if you have to. It doesn't necessarily, because it's one of the things that's actually being discussed online a lot on Twitter right now, about like white people saying that this is a cliche, this should be avoided, you shouldn't do this anymore. But the problem is, another thing that you have to consider is the fact that we Filipinos and Black, Indigenous, people of color in general in the US publishing has just started getting their foot into the publishing door. So, what's cliche to a white story, to a white lens story, may not be necessarily cliche already when it's tackled by a Filipino, an Asian, or a Singaporean, a Malaysian, it's gonna be a different take. So in my case, like, to hell with the cliches. Like, if I have to write a cliche book, well, go ahead. Very well. Like, if white people thinks it's cliche, I'm still gonna put in my Filipino-ness into it. And would they still call it cliche? Like, my experience as a Filipino is gonna be different from those white authored books that people can be a bit tired of. So that's one of the discussions in the that's happening right now on writing Twitter, is that give us a chance to have our books out before you cancel it. You cancel these cliches as mere cliches, because if there's one thing about cliches, or like is that they work. Like, for example, like the hero's journey. Like, you have the hero starting out as somebody really in a desperate situation, and then they meet like a mentor, and the mentor helps them get better, and then eventually, like, they fail one time, and they fail against the villain, and then they eventually in the end triumph over the villain and go back to where they came from, totally a changed hero. So that kind of thing, like, some would say that the hero's journey is cliche when it comes to adventure, like middle grade adventures. But you have Rick Riordan Presents putting out the hero's journey all the time in different with different kinds of cultures, kind of like the Dragon's Pearl. You have like a trans author who's an Asian, and you also have like Arusha. She's South Asian, and it's a hero's journey. It may sound cliche to some people, but it's a totally different experience when it's discussed, and it's narrated through a lens of somebody who came from South Asia, from the Philippines, from Japan, from Korea, from Africa, from South Africa. Basically, it's gonna be totally a different perspective. So give us a chance and just try, just keep on writing. That's what I say, because normally if you keep on letting like cliches or whatever, all these things bother you, you're gonna feel like you're being stifled, and you're gonna have a hard time actually putting those feelings, those words, those thoughts. You're gonna have a hard time putting yourself into your stories because of those things that keep on distracting you, that you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do this. I'm actually that type of person that the more that you tell me that I shouldn't do something, the more that I'm gonna do it. So yeah, just try to drown out the noise about what you shouldn't and shouldn't do, and just write your story. And that's one of the things that even my agent tells me all the time. Like, don't be bothered too much about the trends. Don't be bothered too much about what old white men keep saying. Like, come on, you gotta face it. Like, most of these what we should not do are told to us by old white men, and some of them are probably dead because like, old white men who are used to like dominating publishing, and like, just write your own story, because I'm telling you, the whole world needs it, and the whole world is asking for it.
Thank you, Gail. There's a question here for Joel from Sylvan Masteren. I finished my story, but I realized it's too short for a novel, and it lacks depth in character development. And now I'm all out of creative juices and have no energy to write again since I need to work. Oh, sounds familiar. How can I salvage the story without throwing away the good parts?
So hi, Sylvan. Sylvan is my batchmate from Iligan Workshop. Okay, so what was it? It's called Frankensteining. I've done this a lot of times. I usually upload my stories or fragments of stories in a website. I currently use World Anvil. You could have other sites that you use, and you basically feel free to Frankenstein. You cut up good parts. If it's not long enough for a novel, try selling it for something else, as a novelette and if it lacks character depth, have you considered the possibility of co-authoring? Um, if you are too tired to finish it, try to look for a co-author who would be willing to look at what what your intent is and how character development can benefit it, and they can use their own framework to develop those characters. Um, I'm going back to Dungeons and Dragons because Sylvan plays Dungeons and Dragons. Tracy Hickman and Margaret Weiss wrote Dragonlance as because of their Dungeons and Dragons games. It's based off their Dungeons and Dragons games. So co-authoring might help you out. I've done some co-authoring, but none of them finished, and most publishers don't like co-authored stories because it has problems with payments. But if your objective is to put up a good story, and you know that character development is one of your weaknesses, tap one of your friends.
Thanks, Joel. Maybe I should start playing Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, we have a question from Maridan Balbona for both Gail and Joel. Do you have any rituals or habits when writing a story?
Well,
Gail?
I'm an extreme plotter. Like literally extreme plotter. So I'm not gonna start a story unless I have my character sheets, my world building sheets, my very extremely 16-page outline. I can see Daphne nodding. I'm pretty sure that's like one of the things that editors love to read, receiving. Like you have like extremely detailed stuff. So actually, whenever I propose something to my editor, she gets like a 16-page single-spaced summary of things. So yeah, from from that synopsis, what I do is I then turn it into a chapter. I break it down into chapters already. So what you see is what you get. If you get a synopsis from me, when you get the first draft, it's gonna be exactly like that. So my chapter, I'm gonna like divide it into chapters. And then once I have that, I'm going to write a script type of thing per chapter. A script type like name, and this is their dialogue thing, and this is their dialogue. I like to see how dialogues play out in my mind first. Like I want to see them on paper. That this says this, and it gives me a sense of how they speak. So even without all the fancy narrative stuff and the poetic stuff, you get to see how they're talking in that boring script. And then once I have the script, that's when I put in the narrative. And then I add in the world building, and then I add in the interiority, the feelings, which by the way, I have a hard time with. I have a hard time with adding in feelings. A friend said it's probably because I'm very technical. So yeah, with another information that you might find useful is that there's this book. It's called The Emotion Thesaurus. I suppose that's what it's called. It's Emotion Thesaurus. It's I can't remember the writer, but you can find it on Amazon. It's you can download it. It's not that expensive. I think they offer it on Gumroad or something. But the Emotion Thesaurus, it helps you like helps you with narrative stuff that you can use to convey emotion. And since I'm having a hard time with that, I use that Emotion Thesaurus as a reference. And then once I'm there, I send it out to my critique partners, and they give me feedback, and then I tackle it, I revise. And sometimes I overhaul stuff, like, and like for example, like with Sugar and Spite, this one, I gave my editor a first draft sometime in January, and then she gave me notes. And then when I came back to her in March, that was around like a month probably, came back to her with a totally different manuscript. That she was like, "Is this the same book? The only thing that I can see that the same about this are the names or the people, the cast, but it seems like an entirely different book." So it really, sometimes I have a tendency to be like that. It's a weird thing that if you see if I give a rough first draft to somebody, I get this inclination that I have to make it so much better. So I like really edit it out. So edit stuff, and I don't hesitate like throwing away chapters or throwing away stuff that I've written, because just like in web design, I have this system of being a bit on the modular side. You know, if something doesn't work for this particular book, I'm gonna put it aside. I'm gonna throw it. I'm gonna like just file it for later. So if I have a book where this particular scene works, I'm gonna just grab it and put it there. So that's one of the things of how I do view things, and I have a feeling it has something to do with my background in web design and development, about the planning, the incessant planning, the need to have everything ready before I can start. So yeah, I'm sure that that's not the case for a lot of writers, because some of them just go with it, and I can't do that. I'm a totally different writer. And by the way, I use Scrivener, because Scrivener lets me. It's a program. I think I forget how much it is, like $50. I think. And I think if you finish NaNoWriMo, you can get it at 50% off. So the Scrivener is basically allows me to write chapters out of order. So whenever I don't feel like writing the first chapter, I'm just gonna jump to like chapter 17 or something, and it's gonna be perfectly fine. It's still gonna make sense because it's based on my extremely detailed chapter outline with dialogue and script. So there, that's how I do things.
Okay, thanks, Gail. I thought the rituals would involve
What?
like drawing grams and
No, definitely.
things
Well, if you want a ritual, it's probably like going out with the ducks and like playing with the ducks for a bit, cleaning their poop. That's probably a ritual, not the most.
What about you, Joel? Any rituals before you write?
I'm the same. I'm a plotter, so I start with an outline, and usually a sentence outline that I expand into a paragraph outline. Then I chop it up into at least 11 and at most 14 chapters, so that I can mark the um, rising action. Really, I'm such a boring writer. I am like, oh, Freytag pyramid. God. I'm such a dweeb. Um, but for rituals, I drink coffee. I drink about 7 cups of coffee a day. And if I'm not slightly on edge, I don't feel normal. And then I get drunk.
Are you
So
allowed? Do you sleep
then I
after all
drink
that?
alcohol. I think it's a lot of the restraints that I impose upon myself require some release from alcoholic beverages, so that I can shut up the editor in my head. Other rituals, I don't smoke. I think it's a ritual to bounce ideas off your head, friends. I don't think writing is as lonely an experience as it used to be. A lot of the people in this room, I've asked questions about. I've read some of their stories. I'm very excited about reading more of their stories, and um, and in the end, it's about communication, right? So you should make that part of your rituals, communicating your intent with your peers and asking them for genuine feedback.
Thanks, Joel. So are both of you actually working on your next book? And can you tell us a little bit about what you're working on?
It's still secret.
Is it?
but yeah, it's still under consideration. It's actually my option book with Scholastic, and we're still it's still with my editor, and considering how COVID-19 is doing right now in the US, things are going pretty slow. So we're still waiting on that one. But for NaNoWriMo, I'm actually writing two books. I'm so ambitious. I'm trying to write two books. One is an middle grade fantasy, and another is a YA fantasy. I can't talk much about the YA yet because we already have some interest on it from other publishing houses. But the middle grade fantasy, it's actually a middle grade fantasy of my heart, because this one is it's kind of like a Percy Jackson-esque middle grade, where it's set in the Philippines again, and the book is about it's a little girl who's an adoptee, and who has epilepsy, kind of like me when I was a kid. It's about her and her adopted little sister, and their objective is basically to find their mom, who turns out to be kidnapped by some Tagalog deities, and those deities, since a deity kidnapped the mom, the only way to find her is to ask the help of Anagolay, who is the Tagalog goddess of lost things. So that's what I'm working on right now, and we're hoping to find a home for it if all goes well by hopefully by January or something. And if I don't like suddenly felt I got bitten by the lazy bug and decide not to finish it this December, as I promised with my agent. But I'm doing my best because it's a fun story, and we don't really get that much protagonist. We don't really see protagonists who are epileptic, and I wanted to reflect my childhood, like my experiences about like don't do this, you have to drink your medicine on time, or you're gonna have a seizure. And unfortunately there are times that I did as a kid tried my like being like a rebel and decided not to drink my medicine, and I ended up with seizure. So yeah, that's that kind of thing, that kind of experience isn't represented in middle grade that much. So I wanted like kids who were like me to have like this book that they can relate to. And yeah, that's hopefully, yeah. And we have high hopes for this one. So
Looking
yeah,
forward to it, and all the
thanks.
best.
Yeah, I'm excited about it because probably it's because it's really dear to me, because my sister and I are both epileptic, and right now I've outgrown it already, because I really religiously took my medicine after that one episode where I felt rebellious and did not drink it for a day. Yeah, and but my sister is kind of like more of a risk taker than I was, and there were like more instances of her not drinking her medicine. So right now she still has epilepsy. So, and I think I just want people to know that your life can go on. You can be a hero. You can be you can save the entire Philippines and the rest of the world, and the middle what do you call this, like the middle world. You can an entire universe actually, even if you have epilepsy, and you have to depend on your medicine to make sure that you don't you have a seizure. So yeah, that's my next book that I'm hoping to get published, but except for that little thing that's already with Scholastic. So
Okay.
yeah.
All the best, Gail. What about
Thank
you,
you.
Joel? How about you, Joel? What are you working on?
I'm writing the second book, where it focuses on one of the secondary characters from Wing of the Locust.
Who? Which one? Who?
Gilas.
Oh,
It
okay.
focuses on Gilas, and it focuses more on the hereditary poverty. So if you are familiar with the concept of of how poor people really don't have the opportunity to succeed in life because they inherit the poverty of their parents, and therefore, as adults, they don't have the same capacity to succeed. So we have the concept of hereditary poverty, which is a parallel to the concepts of slavery in pre-colonial Philippines. So it's going to discuss that along with what I call the Manny Pacquiao phenomenon, where when you start criticizing capitalism and basic wages, they say, "Oh, but what about Manny Pacquiao? He managed to become rich and famous through his perseverance alone." So, because the fact that one person out of 60,000 people succeeded, 60 million people, so you have 60 million poor people, and one of them succeeded, that doesn't prove that capitalism is success. That actually proves the opposite. If capitalism is successful, then all 60 million of those people will become rich. So the Manny Pacquiao phenomenon is the opposite of proof of what it means to be a successful capitalist society. So yes, I'm writing that for young adults. So that's my next project.
Okay, good luck with that, Joel. Hopefully it'll be in my inbox soon. Okay. Okay. Would both of you like to share some favorite Southeast Asian authors and also non-Southeast Asian authors?
Oh, this is perfect. I love that. I was waiting for this one. I was excited. Yeah. First one would be Pie in the Sky by Remy Lai. She's Singaporean who's currently based in Australia right now. It's a story of immigration about this boy who migrates to Australia from Singapore, and she's having little boy is having a hard time adjusting because he can't speak English. So yeah, that's one. Number two, it's All the Ways Home by Elsie Chapman. It's also middle grade. It's about it's also about a boy who's acting out because his parents got into a accident and died, and then for him to since his grandparents couldn't handle him anymore, he got sent to Japan, where he tries to adjust to living with his Japanese father and his older brother. And another one is it's recently been published. It's by a Malaysian author, Hannah Alkaf. It's The Ghost and the Girl. I believe that's the title. The Ghost and the Girl. It's about a girl who inherits a poltergeist. I think that's what you call it. A poltergeist named Pink, who is extremely jealous. Like, he becomes her friend, but since he's jealous, when she starts getting friends who aren't a poltergeist, who isn't Pink, he starts getting really jealous and like doing all these things, like basically being a poltergeist. So what else? Number 4, it's by Filipino American author Marie Miranda Cruz, Everlasting Nora. I'm pretty sure that you folks might have seen it in national books in Fully Booked. It's the cover is it's a royal blue cover with a Filipino girl. It's about Nora, who is who lives in the north the Manila cemetery. So it's an interesting take into the social justice within the Philippines. And Marie Miranda Cruz was born and raised here in the Philippines before she migrated to the U.S. And for the, how many did I say already? Daphne?
One more.
One more. All right, Southeast Asian. This one, because I kind of like feel bad because people don't have access to it yet. It's a middle grade book by Jessie Sustanto. She's an Indonesian. I've totally forgotten the title. I'm so sorry, but Jessie Sutanto actually has a lot of books coming out right now, and one of which is Dial A for Aunties. This one is an adult book, and it's gonna be a Netflix movie as well. So it's yay! It's a victory for us Southeast Asians. Like that's like a total victory, right? I mean, it's not every day that you get like uh what do you call this, like a Southeast Asian author actually having their book turned into a Netflix movie, and Jessie has done that. So you have to watch out for it, and the title is Dial A for Aunties, which is kind of quite interesting as well, because the premise is basically this. It's about this wedding coordinator or photographer, totally forget, who accidentally kills her date, and what does she do to cover up the crime? She dials A for Aunties who help her cover up the crime. So it's pretty interesting. So that's another one to watch out for. And yeah, more or less there. And of course, there's like Hannah Alcoff's young adult fantasy, historical fantasy. If you're into young adult books, um, it's based in the I'm not too familiar with Malaysian history, but it's about like this girl who encounters a jinn, is that what you call it, a jinn who puts a curse on her where she has to experience her mother's death like at infinite times during an uprising in Malaysia. An uprising in a point of Malaysian history. So that's something I know is also available in Fully Book, and you'd be able to buy one of those. And yeah, and okay, and I have to admit, a lot of them, they're all my friends. So be sure to get their books. And Remy Lai also has a book out. It's another graphic novel and prose hybrid, kind of like Pie in the Sky. That's it's called Fly on the Wall. It's much it's lighter than her first book. So that's another book that you should watch out for. And Remy Lai is like a really great author illustrator. So that's something that your kids would probably enjoy so much. And her humor is just so on point. I mean, like, she gets along with me. Like we have like chat messages spanning just discussing about poop, which is better, duck poop or dog poop. So that's the kind of friends that I have. So so yeah, you're gonna, I'm pretty sure that you're all gonna enjoy it. And just ask again, I'm not sure if it's available in National Bookstore, but I'm pretty sure I got my copy from Fully Booked. There.
Thank you, Gail.
Sure,
Any
you're
recommendations, Joe?
Okay, so let's have our moderator, Daphne Lee's Bright Landscapes. So it's a lot of Malaysian folklore, which are oddly familiar to me because I think our ancestors might have come from the same place. I don't know. And next, the woman who was responsible for the blurb of my story. It's about the Balangiga massacre and the journalist from the US trying to uncover data about that. It's Insurrecto by Jean Apostol. Next, I have one of my favorite series, Jano Silang. It's in Filipino though, Daphne. I'm wondering if they have an English translation of this, but I hope there's a manga version. And by Edgar Calabia Samar. Next, let's see. Oh, that's 1, 2, 3. Let's have someone from Indonesia, Ika Kurniawan, Beauty is a Wound. I thought you hated this. Daphne's clapping her hands. We were talking about this and you didn't like it.
I'm clapping for the author. I prefer another book of his, Man Tiger.
Okay, so yeah. I like it's very reminiscent of Gabriel Garcia Marquez and how it's nonchalantly magical.
Yeah.
And the sex is also strange. The but I like the discussion of sexuality. I think we as Southeast Asians are both very vulgar, but also precarious about actual intimacy. We like vulgarity, but we don't like intimacy. Isn't that weird? So, Ika Kurniawan. Finally, a really ancient book.
Okay.
This is Project 17 by Eliza Victoria. This, as you can see, this book is ancient. This was from several decades ago. And there, one of the oldest books in that pile. All of those are this is sci-fi, Filipino sci-fi. It's very difficult to speculate sci-fi for the Philippines as a third world country. How do you resolve technology when everything is so backwards, right? So those are my 5 recommendations for Southeast Asian books.
Thanks, Joel. Going back to Ika Kurniawan, I think the problem I have with that book is probably the translation. Yeah, I think some of the sections of the book, especially the dialogue, to me wasn't translated well. And I think there's a problem when translating Southeast Asian languages into English, right? Okay, what I noticed about especially Gail's recommendations, a lot of all of the books are actually Southeast Asian writers who have been published by the West. So I would like to ask both of you your thoughts on how difficult it is to actually get our hands on Southeast Asian work that is published in Southeast Asia, even work that is published in a common language like English, for example.
You know what? Speaking of which, it's actually one of the gripes. That's one of the things that I was worried about when I published my book, is that you're going to be lumped in the Filipiniana category in the bookstores. I'm sorry if anyone's offended, but yeah, that's the problem. And like your book, if for example you have like a fantasy book, it's totally like a science fiction and fantasy. It's very obvious that it's science fiction and fantasy, but they're going to shelve it under a generic umbrella category in the bookstore as Filipiniana. So all Filipino authored books will be lumped together in just one shelf. And that's going to be very difficult. Like if you are like a reader, like especially with my target market, which is like 8 to 12 years old, if you see the word Filipiniana, the first impression that you're going to get is, oh my gosh, this is going to be homework. So what are they going to need to do? They're just going to ignore the shelves totally. And they're going to go to those Western books that have been categorized specifically, correctly, based on genre, and not based on the fact that it was written by a Filipino, so it was lumped together in just one category. So that's, I think, is a huge issue. I think that
what do you think could be done to address this problem?
Well,
because the alternative seems to me that only books that are published in the West will actually see the light of day, right?
That's the thing. And the reason why I was able to push to be categorized in the right one, which is contemporary and a bit and kids books. I was able to push for that because, come on, there's like the idea of like if anything comes from the West, it's better. You have to I think our main problem right now is the idea that the West is better. We are stuck with that kind of mentality.
How do we address that problem?
Well, that's the thing. It's an institutional problem, and I think it all should start from all of us, like from all of us readers. Like we need to require bookstores to properly shelve the books. Talk about it to the manager. Like, how come I'm seeing this book in Filipiniana when it should be in fantasy? You should shelve it in fantasy. Take it up yourselves to actually requested. That's exactly what I did for Butterfly. I intentionally said that since you're going to like um sell my books here, I would really like that you shelve it under the correct category, the correct genre, and not just lump it in Filipiniana. And I made sure that my editor knows that, and I made sure like everybody knows that, so they are forced to do that. Like, really actively do it. And as a reader, every time I go to the bookstore, if I'm looking for like a book, then and I suddenly see it in the Filipiniana, I talk to the I talk to somebody like the salespeople or the manager, and then they're happy to like take in the feedback, and then next thing when I go back, it's properly shelved. So
Is this an issue that the NBDB can play a part in? Do either of
I
you
don't
think
know.
so?
I don't know.
Joel, what are your thoughts about this?
About being lumped together as Filipiniana. I guess that's National Bookstore, I guess. Fully Book barely carries any. So that is a bit unfortunate.
But fully booked National Bookstore is like really nationwide.
Yeah. It's a question of availability, really. I think we live in a time where it's very important to communicate your market, rather, as Henry Lien says, be enthusiastic about your product. Because engaging the people through social media informs them of better ways to engage their bookstores. We must acknowledge that these bookstores are businesses, and they will put stuff on the shelves that will move. And to make sure that those titles are moving, we need to engage our markets with some enthusiasm. Like say Egay Samar as he was described, a publisher's dream. He would go to schools. I believe Gail goes to schools as well.
Well, not right now.
Not right now.
I might get COVID. So.
So engaging your prospective readers is very important, because the being lumped together in a tiny section of the bookstore is a bit difficult to fix institutionally, but on a grassroots level, I think it's possible.
Yeah, actually, I totally agree with that, because it has to start from us readers the thing is, I think if I'm gonna take it as in a managerial perspective, like the business side of things, people get this idea that if it's within the Philippines, it's not as good. And it's a colonial mentality that has been brought onto us that I think that we really need to start outgrowing already. Like it's like 2020. We should stop having like this colonial mentality of thinking that anything American, anything in European should be much better than what we have bringing out. And the thing is, companies like National Bookstore, which caters to a lot of branches nationwide, you also have to consider that this is business. Like it's going to like just what the market wants, basically. And if the market doesn't like really buy those books, what can they do? Like they're going to just get stuck with a stock of a bunch of boxes and upon boxes of Filipino authored books. It's just gonna be probably destroyed because no one wants it. So the idea of changing this to actually change the major bookstores like Full Book and National Bookstore that has the power to actually move books within the Philippine industry is that we need as readers to demand Filipino authored books, and we create a demand for them. What we should do is that we ask for them. If it's out of stock, get me some. I'm ordering. You recommend them to your friends. If you're a blogger, review it, like boost the stories made by Filipino authors. And I think that that's the only way to actually start changing people's mindset, and eventually outgrow this. It's about time we outgrow this colonial mentality. Like we really need to get out of it. And until then, until we as consumers actually asks for it, demand for those kinds of books, I think that's the time that our bookstores are actually going to respond. And I have a feeling that they're going to respond well. I mean, I remember like there was like because I knew that my book was going to be like used as a text in one of the schools, and it's actually my alma mater. So I knew they told me that they're using it as a text in middle school. So I knew that my book is going to have a lot of orders. So I told them about it, and like, but the thing is, they still like had a shortage. So what the people did is like they keep on asking for it, they keep ordering, and what does the bookstore do? They deliver. So you have to ask for it. Basically, as a reader, you need to ask for it, because they need to know that there's a market, there's a demand for it. And this is me talking like a business person. So that as an author, it kind of like sucks to be lumped in the Filipiniana, and it's gonna be me, like, it sucks to be here. But as also as a business person, as a business owner, I can see that you need to have a demand to cater to, or you're gonna be stuck up with books that you will eventually have to just destroy because no one wants it. So
Okay. Thank
And
you
that
for
is a
your-
great jumping board for plugging where you can order our books. So you can order Gail and my book, Gail's and my book, through Great Books at fullybookonline.com. Great Books at fullybookonline.com. And I will have a promo through Instagram, instagram.com/dearbooksph, where you can get a autographed copy of my book if you show up for a Facebook Live video on the 26th. Details are on Instagram, Dear Books PH. Also, I'd like to. Earlier, there was a shout out, or rather, there was a question about writing. And some, of course, was mentioned that one of my short stories won editor's choice in the best Asian short stories. Did you know that the winning short story was initiated as a peer review activity by Bookbed, which is one of our sponsors for this program? So you see the chat in the chat. That's Bookbed. Their website is bookbed.org. I joined the peer group exercise where I wrote the story and anonymous people read it, and they were able to help me in fleshing out a better story. One of my readers was Jan Baltazar. I'm wondering, no, that's not how we met. But, that's how Jan and I got to talking about our stories. And it's really, really great. So engaging your peers and contacting your bookstores, that's how you get your books out there on the market.
Okay, thank you, Joel. So to wrap up, we've come to the end of the session. Any last tips or messages for your readers, Gail, Joel?
Yeah, again, I'm gonna have to plug my campaign, kidlitforluzon.com. This is actually pretty useful if you're going to be you're planning on querying an agent in the US, if you have manuscript and if you're in need of a critique, or if you want your character, your book character drawn by an artist. So this program, I'm going to talk about just a little bit about it. It's basically what it does is that you're going to donate to to organizations who are helping the typhoon victims of the typhoon victims in Luzon, and then you submit that. Yeah, most of the donations are just at a minimum of $15. It requires a $15 minimum donation, and then you go to the site, and there, if you click on click plus receive, you're going to see a list of you're going to get a list of available gifts that are being given away by agents, by authors, published authors, by editors and illustrators. You can get free critiques, like literally, like query critiques, manuscript critiques. Like some of them are even offering like 25 pages, like 50 pages of your manuscript. They're going to like critique it for only $15, and that's like quite a steal, because you folks know how expensive it is in the US, and like at $15, that's like a steal. So what you do is just donate and redeem a gift from the site. And we have a lot of gifts coming. We have like books, actually. Like some of them are even mailing internationally. Like I believe, although Adi El Said is only like I'm not sure if he's doing a critique. I think he is. He's doing a critique. If I forget, like a lot of YA authors. Like we also have like books by Dahlia Adler. We have like Erin Entrada Kelly is doing a free critique as well, like $15 free critique from Newbery Award-winning Erin Entrada Kelly. That's like for $15. You just need to donate $15 and you can get that. And so it's like so basically it's like the Kidlit community giving you an incentive to donate to the victims. So our goal is to actually encourage people to keep on donating to different organizations, because it's such a widespread devastation. So if they keep on donating, like keep on redeeming, I actually had some few people who are like going on a donation spree. Like one person has actually like redeemed like 5 or 10 items on the list and donated to 10 organizations. So that kind of thing. So there, it's kidlitforluzon.com. And on the bookish side, yeah, I have to, of course. Hannes is here, so I have to like advertise. Like our publicist is probably watching, so I'm gonna have to advertise. My book, it's Sugar and Spite. It's coming on April 20, 2021, and of course, you can get my Fate According to the Butterfly in from Fully Book and National Bookstore. It's available there, so you can just order.
Thank you. Thank you, Gail. Joel, do you have a session at the Manila International Book Fair to promote?
Sessions. Gosh, plugging. Okay, let's begin. I'll have, first off, we have great reads at Fully Booked Online. You can order my books through Fully Booked. Great reads at fullybookedonline.com. Then, as Daphne has already mentioned, we have a session at the Manila International Book Fair with and the promo details are available through Instagram right there, Dear Books PH on Instagram. So you can get the first few people who order online through Dear Books PH will get an autographed copy of my book, including a wonderful nameplate attached to it. Lastly, I and Daphne, we are working on an anthology of Southeast Asian mythology and science fiction and fantasy. The details to submit your stories of identity are there in seawinganthology.wordpress.com. So I'm very enthusiastic to hear from you and your stories, because a lot of the people on the chat are also writers, so and as well as readers. So I'm looking forward to all of your works.
Thank you, Joel. So I hope everyone who's here will buy Joel's book and Gail's books. And always support our local writers. Thank you so much for joining us.
One last thing, yeah. Just pahabol, sorry. Sugar in Spite will also be available as an audiobook. So if that's your thing, you can pre-order Sugar in Spite audiobook on Amazon, I think, and the other Audible, I do believe. And last, all those like the audiobooks places, you can pre-order them as well. And we have like they got a narrator who's like who's Filipino American, so she totally nails all the Tagalog words just great. So you gotta watch out for that.
Thank you,
Cheers.
Gail.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you for a fruitful and insightful discussion, Miss Daphne, Sir Joel, and Miss Gail. Thank you for sharing your expertise and knowledge on this matter. I'm sure all of our audiences in Facebook and here on Zoom have learned a lot from your discussions and conversation in our literary and publishing trade conversations. So we would like to thank our viewers, those who participated in this Zoom. Uh, this is entitled The Journey of Story Building, How to Create Engaging, Relatable Content for Readers. So before we end, this is a kind reminder for all to answer our evaluation form that will be sent through your email. And we have more exciting and informative online discussions for our viewers this November. So please make sure to not miss those by going to our Facebook page, NBDB or Books Philippines, and our YouTube, where we will upload this today's session in Books Philippines for YouTube. So let me plug in again our panels and speakers links. That is Great Books at fullybookonline.com, IG at dearbooksph, and kidlitforthezone.com. And before we officially end, may I ask everyone to kindly open their cameras for a photo documentation.
Can I just add, for the person who asked about the Scholastic Asian Book Award, it is on hold at the moment because of obvious reasons with COVID-19. But if you follow Scholastic Asia on Facebook, you can stay tuned for updates. We are hoping to relaunch next year or the year after.
Okay, thank you. Let
Thank
us
you.
take a picture for 10 seconds. Okay. And 1, 2, 3. One more. Okay. Thank you everyone for coming in and joining in our conversation. We have more tomorrow. That is Friday, November 20 for our session 5 and 7. We have Manix Abrera, Nida Ramirez, Bob Ong, and the rest will be updated on our Facebook page. Thank you everyone.
Thank
Enjoy
you.
the rest of the day.
Bye.
Thank you.